It has been 10 years since Mojang's culture-defining digital paradigm first graced our screens. A lot has happened in that time. The space available for smaller, more personal games catering to niche audiences has arguably never been bigger, but in that same breath, the rest of the industry has seen the worst aspects of its culture and economy ooze its way to the surface, in a terrible meeting of raw capitalism and freshly revalidated fascism. As more and more money got pumped into an industry that has shown to care very little for the welfare of its employees and too much about the dreadful opinions of its shittiest customers, the result is a complicated and strained relationship between a community and its hobby. And while there is good to go with all this bad, it is inarguable that the spectre of inhumanity casts a frighteningly wide shadow over everything. It has also been a milestone for myself. 10 years since I graduated from university, accidentally stumbling into a job that has nothing to do with my degree, and spending the following decade struggling with my identity. The me of 2019 is a drastically different, arguably better person to that of his 2009 counterpart, but the road to who I am as a person now has been paved with some particularly harsh truths. In such a rough period, I turned to my hobby for comfort and relief, and to an online community for fresh insight into the games that I love. In turn, I found my own voice as a critic, and my tastes changed with my life circumstances rather drastically. I found myself broadening my palette significantly, seeing games in a far different light at 32 than I ever did at 22, and I hope that in some small regard this has been reflected in the videos I make. This past year, however, has seen even bigger change for me, moving into my first genuine career, one that demands a lot of me, but in turn has energized me to the point that I feel like I've been brought back from the dead. But with my free time dwindling, I have found myself engaged with an aspect of design in the games I play that is not necessarily always its strongest suit. I crave goals, and the catharsis that comes with achieving them, balancing my dance card between big checklist titles like Assassin's Creed Odyssey with those smaller, more tightly curated story-driven titles that can be rinsed in a session or two. Edith Finch, by the way, is a very good game. In amongst all these experiences is a particular anxiety about being productive in my free time, and ultimately treating my hobby like a second job. In the chaos of change, both personally and internationally, it has been some comfort to return to Minecraft and find it virtually the same. While Mojang has changed hands between its gross misogynist creator and one of the largest corporations on the planet, the game's subsequent updates have still retained the core tenets of its design: player-directed storytelling, a world that invites exploration, and challenge presented at the audience's discretion. What strikes me the most returning to the game after many years away is that even doing nothing at all is an enjoyable venture. This is a game that began with a very roughly designed path to progress, that evolved into something a lot more substantial, building up an arsenal of equipment in order to more efficiently mine, and then eventually a means to pass through into another dimension and ultimately face a final foe. There's a lot of stuff to do in Minecraft, but there's an equal amount to not do. As much as its core identity is presented through its namesake, there are other strings to its bow. No other game has ignited such wanderlust within me, having me spend more time hiking around its hauntingly beautiful world than digging underground, or inspired me to spend hours meticulously building things with no function whatsoever. The ocean depths and mountain tops as important, if not more, to my experience as pursuing a path to the Ender Dragon is. Doing nothing feels great, and it feels great because of one thing in particular. Nowhere in the game does it tell you what lies below the surface. Nowhere does it instruct you to pursue certain goals or even hint at impending danger. You're thrust into a Spartan world with nothing but your wits about you, and a quickly understood lesson on how little is needed to survive. Everything else is down to you, down to the player's desire to figure out how this universe works. That original browser-based iteration that took the world by storm in 2009 didn't even have a tutorial. It took a community effort and a lot of experimentation to discover the nuances of the game, and while those quality of life adjustments are now in place, that sense of excitement never left. The anxiety of productivity in games is predicated on the fact that a lot of goal design is, by necessity, instructive. It tells you exactly what it expects of you. A good designer will leave a big question mark in the space between, granting the player the freedom to experiment with the internal logic of the game, but there's still a humble A, and there's still a towering B. To go against such a striking grain is to defy an ever-watching God. There's no value judgment in this statement. There are good games and bad that exhibit both ideas. Some of my favourite gaming experiences of the past decade have been instructive and often at times even prescriptive. And sometimes it's prudent to give those of us less imaginative a window into what the creator feels is valuable for the player to experience. But in doing so, it's important to recognise the effect that such design has on player autonomy. Do you want your audience to act with true freedom, or to simply choose between complying with a creator's will or defying it? In eschewing such a fundamental paradigm of modern gaming, Minecraft granted me the freedom to do nothing or everything. It allowed me to farm beetroot free of the burden of duty, to explore the plains and forests in search of nothing in particular, to befriend wolves and pigs and chickens and just unwind, in turn offering up a perfect remedy to the stresses of my new work life. The power not to ignore, but to leave undiscovered. And that is a truly gracious gift.